We want to teach you how to construct slides in the best possible way using key principles like the ones here, and then we want to get you good at delivering presentations in both a virtual and an in-person format that will ultimately make you an awesome business presenter. In this whiteboard lesson, I'm going to take you through some of the principles and practices of business presentations. And really, our goal as we work together to help you become a better business presenter is to take you from where you are today, and perhaps not, being the most confident presenter, and perhaps not as familiar with presenting in the workplace, and perhaps you're just entering into the workplace, or perhaps you haven't done a lot of presentations previously. You don't have the confidence and the techniques to be a powerful business presenter. And our goal is to get you up to here, where you are then an awesome business presenter, and you have the confidence and the skills and the techniques to present in all the different types and settings that are common today in the workplace, where you need to be able to present and communicate information to groups of people. So this lesson is just going to give you an overview of some of the key topics and concepts and lessons that you'll pick up in the lessons and the detail provided in the course, and all the value that is packaged into your journey through the rest of the content that I put together for you in this course. Right, so the first thing that we look at in the course is the different types of meetings. So the types and the settings of the typical business meetings that you would be encountering. Now, those can range from a smaller team meeting to a more formal gathering of people, to a very senior executive level meeting with a lot of formality. It could be in a sort of town hall environment or an auditorium where there are a lot more people and it's much more of a public presentation, for example. But I'll take you through all of those, and certainly draw on my experience of having spoken to all of those different types of groups of people in my 25 career, and what I've learned about those, and what you need to know on your journey to becoming an awesome business presenter. Most certainly you need to start off with a basic understanding of the different types and settings of business presentations that you're going to be going into. All right, then what I take you through is, and in the corporate world today, PowerPoint is your primary presentation tool. And so I teach you some basic PowerPoint features. In fact, there's two lessons. There's one on the basic, and then more advanced, where I show you the main features in PowerPoint, but then also slide design, and why you shouldn't clutter slides. There's a lesson where I take you through some of the worst slides that I could find on the internet. So we talk about decluttering slides and making sure that you don't have too much detail and text on slides. We talk about the so what box, which is a call out box that you should put on a slide and highlight it, and really you can cover everything else up on the slide, and that so what box is the one thing that needs to come out and be the most important from you presenting that specific slide, the rest of which can back up that statement or that outcome that you're trying to achieve. And one of my favorite quotes is from Mark Twain when you talk about slide design. And Mark Twain famously said that, I was going to write you a short letter, but I didn't have the time, so I write you a long letter. And what that really means is that it's about quality, not quantity. And the same is for slides and slide design and presenting slides. You need to have high quality slides with a maximum amount of impact that minimize the detail but doesn't simplify the message. And so we always apply the Mark Twain principle, because often you might need to put a lot of detail to get your thoughts down on the slide, but then you start to take some of that detail off as you summarize it and are more selective about the points that you want to actually present. And remembering, of course, that there can be detail in your voiceover and your narration of those slides, and in your conversation and your question and answer process with the teams. So basic PowerPoints, how to design slides. You shouldn't put text in front of images, for example. You shouldn't have gradients. You shouldn't have lots of different fancy colors. Most likely you're going to be using a corporate template, which is going to have a color palette built into that template, so you will only be able to select colors that actually go together with each other. So a very important part of the course is then building on your PowerPoint skills and the principles of decluttering your slides. We then talk about slide design, and I go through a couple of demos of that for a couple of real use cases and scenarios that you may have in the office. Now, we spoke about Mark Twain over here, and another great example is Amazon, which have banned PowerPoint. And now that's not the case where I work, and most likely is not the case where you work. Jeff Bezos was able to implement what he called the 6-page memo. And what that really was is a well thought out narrative of the topics that need to be discussed in the meeting, which is then circulated beforehand. And in the first 30 minutes of the meeting, everybody reads that memo. Then they put the memo away, then they have the discussion. Now, to be honest, in that memo, you're going to have pictures and diagrams. And really, it's just a visualization of that text. But I certainly think that the principle of having the narrative written out beforehand for discussion is also good preparation and principles for slide design. So I think the important things about slide design and using PowerPoint is that you don't overuse the features unnecessarily. And if you've sat through slides that there's too many of them, that they're too detailed, and there's lots of transitions and things flying in, and it's too busy and it's too cluttered and the colors just don't match up, then you start to agree with why Jeff Bezos banned PowerPoint. But PowerPoint, used in a disciplined and effective way to meet the objectives of business presentations, I think still can be very powerful. And I think introducing memos or supporting documentation to your slides and your presentations can also be very powerful, and then draws on the 6-page memo approach that is used at Amazon. So types and settings of meetings, PowerPoint basic and advanced principles and techniques, as well as the slide design that builds on those as well. And then we go into your actual delivery. So using the types and settings, how you would then maximize your delivery into those, now that you've got some confidence built up from creating good quality slides. And the delivery there is going to be both to a virtual meeting room and to an in-person, which before 2020, we were all very much used to. From 2020 and the lockdowns, where 1 billion people surged onto digital platforms, and things like Microsoft Teams and Zoom became the default meeting platform, I think that will continue simply because it is a lot more efficient, and we'll have to think carefully about how we build in the human interaction that we would normally have got from the in-person meetings. So chances are, I think that the virtual meetings are going to stick around, and there'll be a lot more of them than we had before the lockdowns of 2020. But in the course, I talk about both, and I give you the principles and practices for being effective in both. So as an example, in the virtual presentation, I talk about the fact that you should never ask people if they can see your slides, or can you hear me, for example. And I give you a technique to resolve that, which is simply to have a secondary device which you've used then to log into the meeting. And I've actually done it a couple of times. You can just double check that your slides are coming up, and that that the audio can be heard coming through, because then you're just viewing your own presentation as if you're another member of that meeting room. And look, there are exceptions to that, but I wouldn't get into the habit of saying, can you see my slides, can you hear me? The technology works, trust it. And believe me, people will say something, they'll just put something in the chat, for example, if there is a technical problem. But you need to get so good at using these platforms, especially Microsoft Teams, I think is most prevalent in corporates today, combining your skills in Microsoft Teams with PowerPoint to become a really effective virtual presenter. And then of course in person, different rooms and different types and settings of meetings are going to require you to think slightly differently as to how you present. And sometimes you're aware of the room setting, sometimes you're not aware, sometimes things change at the last minute. Once again, there might be technical issues that you have to deal with, and sort of those in-person meetings, obviously you're going to get better and better at those and build up confidence with practice, but there's definitely some principles and practices that I talk about there that will help you. And one of them, which applies to both virtual and in-person meetings, is a good quality exec summary. And I can't tell you the number of people who I've seen do lots of slides and lots of detail, and sat up the night before trying to get everything into their slides, and then they go into the meeting and the person says, okay, let's hold the slides because there will have been a pre-read that was sent out, and just give me the executive summary. Just tell me what we all need to know from your presentation. And the person panics because they haven't thought about the detail and the message that they're trying to convey from an executive perspective. So in a business context, you must think about the executive perspective, which is typically called an exec summary. So once again, it's like the so what box at the bottom here. If you took away the whole presentation, what's that one page summary? And very much like what Jeff Bezos wants out of his 6-page memos, but at a slightly detailed level. In summary then, give me the 5 or 6 key bullet points that we as an executive group or as a team or as a meeting need to apply our minds to, and hopefully on there what you should also have is some critical decisions or some issues that you need managed and that you need help with. Okay, so there's lots more fantastic insights and value and principles that I teach you in the course, but ultimately we want to get you from where you are today and perhaps your lack of confidence or lack of experience and the problems that you're facing in terms of business presenting. We want to give you an understanding of the types and settings that you're going to encounter. We want to give you basic and advanced skills in PowerPoint. We want to teach you how to construct slides in the best possible way using key principles like the ones here, and then we want to get you good at delivering presentations in both a virtual and an in-person format that will ultimately make you an awesome business presenter.